I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.
This morning's Dharma talk, which we do every Sunday, have been doing for quite a long time, is titled Move. What'd that stand for?
Matrix of other.
What?
Matrix of other.
Oh, yes. Matrix. It's just a way of talking about it. It's what confuses us is because this is so convincing. If it's physically and it's moving through space or has some kind of motion to it, looks real. And relatively, of course, it is. If it's moving in the mind stream and it has sharp edges or raw quality to it, that seems like whatever may be our story around that seems real. And it does not mean that it does not have a reality. Of course it does. It's just relative. And you can actually work with that in such a way that you see the way in which that shows up. Time. I like to do it this way. It's a matrix. So this only takes you so far, this image, but time and space come together and create this matrix of that just looks like I was over there, now I'm going over there in this space. Identification with this biological situation we call human being. Relatively real, lasts for a while, can be really difficult, can be really easy, can be just wonderfully enjoyable, and it can completely flip over and be scorching, as you all know. So you're going to hear it again, the same thing I've been saying for quite a number of years. Be aware of this. There's nothing to fix in the illusion. Be aware of it. There's nothing to change or modify or push on or pull back in the illusion. What can you do? Be aware of it. And to just walk down the street and appreciate the woods, or listen to the birds, or ride your bicycle, or jog, or anything. It's not that that isn't a good thing to do, and you should do it, but you don't necessarily have to see that as a replacement for some kind of deliberate mind training or awareness practice or mindfulness, because that's more like kind of an entertainment. I'm not saying yoga isn't valuable. I'm not saying getting exercise or jogging or anything doesn't have its place and isn't valuable. Of course it does. Just saying, if you want to see more clearly, if you're running into situations in your life where you're kind of stub your mental toe on things, like I stubbed my physical toe this morning, very painful, didn't mean to do it. You notice that? Or accidents? You don't mean to like have an accident. You're walking along trying to just get from here to there, that illusion of time, and something gets in your way. Did something get in your way, or did you not see that piece of furniture, in our case a couch, the leg of that couch was closer to my swinging foot than I thought it was? You got a big reminder. Trungpa Rinpoche used to use that quite a bit, that mindfulness awareness. You use the image of catching your finger in a door or something, or pinching yourself, that wakes you up to your absorption in your mind stream that keeps you from looking at what's in front of you. So it's about being aware of this situation, this illusion, rather than trying to enter into it, and with your ideas, your opinions, your judgments, your physical movements, your body language, anything. There again, coming back to what someone, Ondo, asked me earlier, can you correct the illusion or something like that? And so even if there's some kind of understanding that you may be adjusting something and moving something from this way to that way, increasing your meditation time, shrinking your meditation time, spending more time listening to the neighbor rather than sitting on your couch and feeling irritated with them. actually receiving something about what is happening around you. And this doesn't mean that you won't have reactions that show up about what they've said or about what someone has said you're having difficulty with. But then the practice there, if you're really a meditator, then the practice there would be to receive your reactions, because what happens and your reaction to it are not two different things. They just look like it. That's why it's a matrix of time and space, a matrix of me and you, and a matrix of all the polarities that show up there. We get trapped by it. And your particular karma, your particular causes and conditions that make you have this kind of ear or this kind of skin color or this particular sexual orientation, however you want to say it these days, all those dynamics are, you do not choose these. You think you have control? Back up 20 or 30 or 40 years and try to rebirth yourself into a more ideal person who doesn't have the issues you're having today. Assuming you're even having any issues. Maybe you're not having any. I'm not having any. This doesn't mean that intense emotions, thunderstorms of rage don't come through this old man. It does. That's how I got here. When I was 18, I had no idea I wanted to end my life. I'm not sitting here to do a confessional. I've probably already done that a couple hundred times already anyway, because I want to say it was so difficult. It was a choiceless for me to find something to do or else bail, get out of this lifetime. Very, very painful. Luckily, I guess you could say it that way, I met Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. Changed that direction. So the matrix of other doesn't mean that that's a matrix of other, that's the illusion. It doesn't mean you disbelieve it. That's not going to help to lecture yourself that this is all an illusion. That's something you just flash on. Do not maintain anything. If you try to maintain anything at all, even the vow, if you return to the vow, return to this vow. Well, maintain it, because then it becomes brittle, and then you have the feeling that you're observing the vow, that you're a Buddhist monk, or that you're a lay practitioner, or that you're just very interested in being a student of the Buddhist Dharma, or these teachings, however you want to look at it, without subscribing to it or joining the club of Buddhism. Had a Shuso ceremony, yesterday for Unyo. And people came and asked questions that lasted about an hour and 45 minutes, I think, wasn't it? Quite a while. And people were very generous with their questions, and Unyo did a really good job responding to questions. For those of you who were able to observe that, there's going to be 4 more, I think, in the next few weeks. So if you can join us, that will be announced. So I can take some questions about anything. Yes, sir.
Kavine, in terms of the matrix, it looks like things, like you've used this before, where things are coming together. If one finger moves, does anything change?
So ultimately, nothing changes or nothing happens, but relatively, yes, this causes that, and that moved over this, and this pushed that way, and then that's further illusion that maybe I can get in there and find the off switch, or maybe I can get in there and we need more of this, and whip it up and crank it up. And excuse me. And does that work? There's all kinds of places where the illusion is intensified, and it's very, very seductive to think that you can. If you can just get a degree in botany, then you can spend the rest of your life doing what you love most, studying weeds. Yes, sir.
Kavine, if the intensity
Don't you
increases,
dare smile at me. Go ahead.
the intensity increases, does that have any meaning?
Everything has meaning. There's anything that happens that doesn't have meaning. It's just that the meaning is not separate from what happens. If you think this is causing that, then that's part of the illusion, and that keeps you further enamored of and in love with time and space and the possibility you might be able to do something about it. More?
Milk avowing, if we're completely enamored, do we need to step out of that?
It's been taught that way, that you can step out of it, and I think that there's some feeling that you can step beyond. Teach the 7 points of mind training talks about working with the relative situation in a way where you can make some, I don't know if I'd call them adjustments, but you can do something with the mind. That's just getting to the cushion is quite a bit of stepping out of it. Just going into a solitary retreat, like several people, Sokuzan just came out of a 15-day solitary retreat where he did what? He stepped out of the whole social interactive structure of the Sangha, of his family and everybody for a period of time, and just spent time practicing. So we're going to be able to do that, and we need to do that if we're going to get any kind of depth. Again, a relative word, to see more clearly you need to see what it is, not necessarily change it into something else or something better or improve. Go ahead.
Milk avowing, what do we do to see what it is?
What do we do to see what it is?
Milk avowing, what is? Yes, what do we? What do we? Is there a way we can practice to see what it is?
Yes. And that's what we do. We meditate. We study the concepts around this that have arisen out of the Buddha's understanding, doing sitting meditation from centuries ago, and all the other teachers' lineage holders down through the centuries. Yeah, we need some help. We need some encouragement. It's important to return to the vision, return to the wall, return to the teacher, return to the teaching, and return to the community. Return. So important. That way, you're actually participating in the illusion that something happens, and it happens in a particular way, time and space. That's an illusion. But in order to see that clearly, it seems necessary that we need to just do our life. Just there's a teaching in I don't know if it's a Tisha, maybe one of you know, but just it's just relax. It will change your attitude and relax as it is. That's basically just saying, change your attitude, unstick yourself from the grip you have on a belief, opinion, judgment, evaluation, or conclusion. Just unstick yourself and just sit there and just enjoy the consciousness that is not an object. Enjoy the consciousness that has no objects coming, has no objects going. And if for maybe 30 seconds or maybe longer, you actually are just present. Everyone's doing this all the time. What happens when the ego sees that? It wants it. I want to be present all the time. What happens when the ego says that? It notices how it can't really be present. Or it goes into some kind of some kind of a way of being more present. Further questions? Sir?
What is matrix pointing to?
Well, my kind of simple-minded way of saying, here's the time part of it, and here's the space part of it. And space and time, very simple ideas about this illusion. When they're together like this, it keeps us from seeing reality. And if you actually see reality, you won't see anything, because you are that. You can't really see yourself. But you can be deluded into thinking you see yourself. You can be deluded into thinking that you understand. This kind of understanding is not logical, not reasonable. It makes no sense. If it made sense, then we'd be still going in a circle, maybe a very big circle that might make sense for 30 years. Still doesn't make sense. Ultimately, relatively, probably does more.
Is there some quality of the matrix that appears to make sense?
Yeah, don't you think there's a tomorrow? Does it ever get here? I mean, it's just simple. This has been around. I mean, comedians have been saying this forever. It always gets somewhat of a snicker. What's being pointed at is always It's always right now, and even this is suspect. The nowness is just an astonishing illusion that there's such a thing as a present moment. If I felt or thought that there was something else, I couldn't do this because I am extremely self-centered. I'm extremely full of myself, which thanks to my Zen master, Koji Roshi, pointed this out to me in no uncertain terms. Otherwise, I couldn't sit up here and presume to say anything to anybody. I would be worried about misleading somebody. I'm not worried about misleading anybody. There isn't anyone. I see it. You don't. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying, well, if you do, then what would you be doing here? This is a real smile. Does it look like it? Okay. Further about that, let's take us down in there, Mr. Google.
Choose unbounding. Do I have to stop endeavoring to manipulate that matrix to see?
Don't have to stop. That's a very important thing. Thank you for that. That you don't have to stop anything. It's just such a powerful thing to realize in your mind stream. You don't have to be somebody else. The worst shit that happened to you yesterday or this morning in your mind stream, ugly, sick, horrible feelings. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm talking about my mind stream. Nothing happened. There's no personhood there. If there's a person, that all comes to a halt in the illusion, and we start to try to fix or stop or blame. You know, we got our hardware is out of the holsters. But we don't have to do that. You see, it's an illusion. That doesn't mean that the negativity doesn't come around and claw around in your mind stream looking for some kind of validation. It doesn't get one because it's consciousness only. It might as well be clouds going through your mind or pigeons flying back and forth, looking for a place to land. No branches here. I'm using a bunch of images because I'm visual. But it's like that. You can actually receive the negativity that arises in your mind. Anyone can, without doing anything with it. Don't turn it into any story. And if the story arises, and that is part of Matrix. And if a story about that arises where you're somehow validated in that, that's part of it. That's why it's so difficult, because it comes in layers, and the perception needs to be seen as it is received. So that the impulse that may go out is immediately turned into a perception. As soon as you see yourself reacting to anything, receive. Don't fix or correct. Did that come close to what you were looking for?
Choose unbounding. Is manipulating relativity just as likely to reinforce it as it is to exhaust that manipulation? Does it matter?
Say that again.
Choose unbounding. Is manipulating the relativity just as likely to reinforce the belief in it as it is to wear out that manipulation?
I wouldn't even say it that way. I would say if you manipulate anything, it depends on what it is. There's so much relativity going on there. So it have to be one of the things you're doing when you sit down and meditate is you're lessening everything. You're coming down to where the production that's going on there is just in the mind. It isn't in your fist, your finger pointing. It isn't in your movement. So you're simplifying. So it's very, very still. Not maintaining stillness, but just holding as still as you can without struggle, and then just watching what continues to move. So it's not about fixing or repairing anything. But if you find yourself doing that, then that becomes an object of meditation also. So the two options you gave me there, when you kind of assume that one another, both of those are just adding to the spinning. But it has to be seen. You don't have to stop doing that. More? Further?
Your Dabbing does working with our mind stream through meditation and watching change at all the mind stream in the current moment.
I didn't catch the last. Does it what?
Does it change that mind stream in the moment?
Certainly. It's still in a relative situation. So yes, it will affect it in one way or another. And you just observe that.
you know, buying, if overall we sit a lot, but we don't feel any better and start to lose some motivation to do that, how, what is happening, or how do we work with that?
So there's no algorithm or protocol or recommendation that I have that I can just say, well, that sounds like this, so why don't you try this or try that? Rather than do that, you should just trust yourself. I have a student recently that I just talked to that decided to, actually I've had more than one, decided to just stop practicing, doesn't want to be involved with the Sangha or with me or with anything anymore. I don't see him on here anywhere. And what do I say that? Maybe you have to do that. That's not incorrect. Maybe you have to go do something else. And I said, if you ask me, of course, I'm very biased. I would say, get your butt on the cushion, continue to look at the wall and all the crap that's arising in your mind stream. Don't blame anybody for it. Don't blame me. Don't blame the Sangha. Don't blame the teaching. Don't mountain. Don't you agree with me?
You know, trying to word this, is there a point where we might think we're doing it incorrectly? You say we just need to keep looking at it and see it.
Yes.
Are we not seeing it if it doesn't seem like things are shifting or changing at all? Or
If I understand the question, I think I do, but I would have to say that doesn't matter because it's going to be so variable with each person. The way I work with my negativity, or Jason, or Shanjian, Mosuku, we're all working with different kinds of things, with relationship stuff and interior stuff that comes out of nowhere. It's just so different. You notice how different everyone seems, everyone's personality, and once you get to know somebody, you can kind of have an idea how they're functioning and how they show up. So it's the same thing in your mind stream. Most important thing you can do is you're fully ordained monk. Just return to the path. Every morning, find a way to do that. Maybe the sevenfold Mahayana Puja. It may be just bowing to the altar and going out the door and walking your dog. You don't have a dog, do you? Your neighbors have one, though, don't they?
all the neighbors have one.
All right, well, find a dog. So I guess what I'm saying is just live your life, but try to return. Even with the person that I'm saying decided to take a year off or whatever they intend. I support that. It's an awareness practice. It's not, you don't have to accomplish anything. I think it would be better if that person just continued, but geez, I don't know what that mind stream is like for them. So maybe they need to do that. If somebody's a fully ordained monk, which this person is not, I might put some resistance on that and say you might want to wait. But there are people in this room, I've said, if you don't want to do that, hand me your robe. We'll put it on a shelf. You don't have any obligation. It might be disappointing to do that, but I have to help people where they're at. If in fact I even have permission to help them. It's very difficult. Path is difficult. The Buddha was not trying to seduce us into something. I don't know why this would be a line of seduction anyway, but life is suffering. And then immediately people come on and say, or maybe not immediately, but with 100 years, that's pretty negative teaching. No, it's just the truth. Nerve endings. Yes.
On divine, are you asking us to trust awareness? Bowing?
No, just be aware. So trusting it kind of adds something to the whole situation. I think it's the returning to watching what moves in the mind stream, face the wall. Eventually you begin to be more of an observer of what's happening in your emotions, your mind, rather than a believer or a disbeliever or an ignoring consciousness. You'll just receive it. It doesn't smell very good, but here it comes. Looks pretty good, here it comes. And if it goes on by, we don't reach out and grasp for it necessarily. We're just aware that we may have some desire for something that is leaving. Or we may have some desire around something that we thought was ours, and it actually doesn't belong to anyone. More?
It seems like there's great power is needed to unglue or see through the matrix, to see the matrix as not separate. Bowing.
So what was the first part of your?
Seems like it takes great power. Is awareness that powerful, or is consciousness that powerful to?
I think this is why the Buddha's teaching is so valuable. We have 2,500 years of teaching, or this teaching coming down through us through writing and texts and so on, and through other people understanding what the Buddha said and beginning to talk about it and teach themselves. And here we would not be here if it weren't for this. We would not particularly be doing this. So returning to that intention, I think that must be something somewhat similar to what the Buddha did 2,500 years ago when he was out in the forest and felt probably pretty bad from breaking away from his family and his kingdom and the Brahmins that were circling around him with his dad. But he understood something and came back and began to talk about it, teach it. So here we are doing something quite similar. What's being said here is train your mind. You don't have to be a Buddhist, join Buddhism, be a monk. You don't have to do any of that, but it might be a good idea to spend some time all by yourself and just watching what continues to join you in your mind stream, thoughts, emotions, opinions, beliefs, fears, hopes. Just observe them. Don't agree, don't disagree, don't look away. And seeing how you can't do that is the awareness practice that will slowly begin to dismantle, just to use that relative word. I'm using Kobin's words of falling apart. Your ideas about everything, self, if you just look at it, will start to come apart because it's held together by warfare, by pushing, by pulling, and by shutting down, by some kind of positionality on it that creates the illusion of I'm over here and everything else is over there. There isn't anyone here. I'm looking at it. And so does that mean, oh, gee, I need to see what Sokuzan sees? No, you don't. You need to see what you're ignoring. You need to look at it closely. Spend the rest of your life doing that. If you don't remember anything else I'm saying, remember that. You train your mind. You look at it yourself. You look at mind. We look at this. What is this? What is this? What is this that we're so worried about, attached to, trying to get away from, trying to get more of, trying to get less of? Manipulation. If you see the illusion and see what it is, you won't be deluded by it. Yes.
Zuka bowing. Earlier you said everything has meaning.
Yes. No, everything is meaning. Anything that shows up means what it is. It's already meaning that. But we leave it because we're egos. We want control. We want to get or not get or prevent or stop paranoid-based consciousness, seventh consciousness in the Yogacara tradition. All you have to do is see that that's not real, and it just loses its pizzazz. It still may show up. You may have 2 days from now, you may have intense emotions come out of the basement of your mind, trying to move things around in your consciousness in such a way that is very painful or uncomfortable. And you may have a story right outside. It may have to do with your partner or with your neighbor or with a Sangha member or with his teacher or with any kind of thing. It does not make any difference what it is. Nothing causes something else. If you think so, then matrix. You believe the matrix and you think some things need to be corrected and other things need to be emphasized. It's just natural for us to do that. And it's not about stopping it. We're not saying be celibate, never swear, don't stop having negative feelings. It's just amazing to just allow yourself to be genuine. Not easy.
Well, Zuko bowing, when you say everything means what it is,
Excuse me, you going to the prison? Yeah, be sure you let them know that you're not an inmate, so I'll let you back out. Okay. Thank you.
when you say everything means what it is that like saying everything that shows up relatively means something ultimately?
This is an old way of saying this. I don't know, maybe you, Jason, maybe you remember where this, but it's in one of the texts, which of course you've studied a lot of those, maybe you can recall, but somewhere it says everything is preaching the Buddha's Dharma. Just a little story around everything is saying what this is. Whatever you look at, whatever you think, whatever you smell, taste, hear, touch, remember, everything is saying not separate, not separate, not separate. You recall?
At least one of those places, I think Shobogenzo acknowledges that.
Shobogenzo, okay, the works of Dogen Zenji. Thank you. So the meaning, nothing is separate. So therefore, when we think this happened, that must mean you're stretching that apart into two different things, so that the illusion of me as a separate being or you as a separate being can either succeed or be really upset because they're failing. Any position works for ego. It doesn't care if it's from the point of view of the contamination of otherness. It doesn't matter if there's success or failure, just as long as the polarity continues. Then the ego gets to be somebody who's failing, for that matter. More. Thank you.
Jews, I'm buying. Is there a matrix of self?
You could dream something up. We could sit down with a legal pad and figure things out. But probably the best one to use is one that's already there, which is the 5 skandhas or the 5 heaps: form, feeling, perception, concept, or thinking process, and consciousness of the 6 sense fields and their objects, including the mind. So that's already that kind of a structure that is very matrix-like. And when liberation, to use the fancy way of saying, is achieved, which I don't know about the word liberation, although I use it. I don't know about the word achievement, although I would use that. I'm using it now. That just comes apart. It doesn't mean that the third one, perception, or the second one, a feeling, isn't still functioning. It just doesn't tie into all the other skandhas to join arms, so to speak, to still function as the illusion of somebody, some self. So we just the word is often used as self-existing. In other words, it just has its own dynamic in consciousness, that when that shows up, there isn't anything else but that, because consciousness is amazing at being able to find its own form. And when it finds its own form, it doesn't ignore every other form, but the fundamental understanding is that form is not separate from anything else. So everything has happened. A trash can in Topeka, Kansas, laying next to a telephone on 3rd Street. I think there is a 3rd Street in Topeka. That is not separate. It's separated all to hell, all to heaven. Separated, but it's fundamentally not separate. You begin to see that, it breaks your heart at the suffering that people are causing each other. It's heartbreaking to see that. And if it's heartbreaking, there's still some kind of ego mind functioning there. There's a feeling. More.
Jews, I'm buying. Is there a relationship between the matrix of self and the matrix of other?
It's the same situation. Self and other are just two aspects of the illusion that we're deluded by. They're the same. The traditional way it's been said in the past is the observer, the identity of subjectivity, is the observed. So everything you're looking at, it's an astonishing realization, because what does it do? It just kind of takes away, or you can't find a tabletop to lean on. I mean, even though you do that, but you just realize it's unreal. It's not real. Every footstep, unreal. Is why I call the noon book study footsteps. So that eventually you can see that is really not happening. There are no footsteps. More.
Jews, I'm buying. Are you saying that the matrix of other includes the matrix of self, or like?
You could say include. Eventually it does whatever it wants to do because you have no say so because there's no you. And the whole idea of say so is also an illusion that there is someone in charge. When I say get your own authority, quoting Kobanchino Roshi, who apparently said that at one point. I'm not saying there is one, but you could look at that word, who's in charge? You know, it's like Abbott and Costello. What was that? Who's in first? They were teaching the Dharma back in the 1920s.
Jews and bowing. So is the other you're referring to in opposition to our true nature?
No, the opposition has come apart, so there isn't any otherness. And anything that shows up as others, you just see it as an illusion. It's unreal. It's a chimera. It's a ghost. And it's what you could say is sometimes I'm talking like this with Unyo, and she'll say, "Why are you smiling?" But why am I smiling? Because I'm not frowning, I suppose. It's just when I'm talking, as I've said hundreds of times, I'm not talking out of something I memorized. I don't have any memory. That's why I have to read these notes. But I'm talking out of this whole Dharma talk comes out of thinking about mu, matrix of other. So it's a matrix of time, this one, and space, and all the parts in there that come together, past and future, objects, lack of objects, more objects, bigger objects, smaller objects, including emotions and thoughts and memories that create the illusion of somebody, because there's a body here. This looks very, very real. But if you see what this is, it doesn't mean you'll stop eating or taking care of your health, because you still are in the illusion, but you realize that what is fundamentally important, you can't even find it. Although spiritual paths, especially theistic ones in the past, have tried to find some kind of creator, deity or something, misunderstanding, to look somewhere else for something that you are. Other questions? Sir.
Yoka bowing question from Jane. How do we cut through all the habits that keep us off the cushion?
So I would have to maybe interact with you personally, which I'm not saying we need to do that, but to get an idea what your habituation is. But you could very simply, if you really want to do that, if you really have the inspiration to do that, set it up so you have to run into it over and over again. Sometimes they put a note on your refrigerator or on your nightstand or on your mirror in your bathroom, and make it a positive statement. I meditate every day. It can be something very simple that you can accomplish from 7 a.m. to 7:15 a.m. It's only 15 minutes. And then sit down. Don't do it with a digital clock. You could use a analog clock or something to if you need to time it, use that, and then sit down, strike a bell, use a sound to start, and then 15 minutes later, hit the bell again or the gong, and just do that. And let the rest of it do whatever it needs to do. You may need to study the Dharma. That's why we have all kinds of things set up where you can study text together with community or with Sangha, which I think is a very important part of the three jewels. So doing it in that's kind of a soft way. All you're doing is reminding you. If you were to talk to me about this, which I'm not necessarily inviting you to do that, you can do whatever you want. But if you were to talk to me about this, I would emphasize observing that and not obeying it. So if you came back and said, I looked at that every morning for a week and I never did meditate, I'd say that's what I'm talking about. It's the awareness of it. Because everyone's karma, everyone's causes and conditions are different. Meditation for me is not any easier now than it was in 73 when I first started it. Still fall asleep, still daydream, still. But it doesn't matter what happens. What does matter? Be aware of it. Eventually the identity of someone who's aware falls away and there's just consciousness only. No guarantee. And that will not be an experience, and it will not be something you can cash in or take to the bank or prove anything about. We take another couple of minutes if there are further questions, or we could just close.
David bowing.
David, go ahead.
I'm not sure how to ask this question, but I'll try. Does being awake has anything to do with movement?
Yeah, go ahead, please. You have something further.
Or being the movement, maybe. Bowing.
Okay, it gets a little bit fancy when we say being the movement or be the movement. But yes, watching the movement, being the movement, if you want to use that, and not particularly leaving the movement for what it means, leaving the movement for whether it's right or wrong, but just being the ego word, the relative ego word for that is being extremely vulnerable, extremely sensitive to everything and everyone around you, but yet not particularly reacting to it. And if there is a reaction to something, then including that as part of the movement. But it wouldn't be something you can necessarily make yourself do. You can't just be somebody else or do something different. So the movement that's happening in the mind stream as you hold very still on the cushion is a way, not the way. Who knows about the way? But it's a way to train the mind to see more clearly. So in everyday situation, when you're off the cushion and you're interacting with your family or your friends or neighbors or coworkers or whatever, that you're more likely to just receive what's happening rather than come to conclusions, judgments, opinions, and so on about what's happening. That would be closer to what you're asking about. You actually would be what is happening to you. So when someone looks at you, especially if it's an expression you're not sure what they're thinking, you'll notice a tendency to want to project onto it, to guess. It's kind of like guessing at what somebody, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you okay? You're wondering maybe if that's about you or because it's always about me, somewhat. So observing the movement without leaving the movement or what it means or what it leads to. You're not deliberately eliminating past and future, but you're no longer going to be particularly fooled by it. You'll see that it's only relatively true.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When you're bowing, sometimes you quote your teacher who said, as I recall, listening to me is like listening to a dead man.
Yes.
What are you saying when you say that?
It's not anything particularly fancy. It just means that you know you died a long time ago.
And what died?
The belief in that there's somebody that was living. It doesn't change your karma. It doesn't mean you won't yell and scream at somebody. It doesn't change the karma that brought you into this world, shape of your ears, color of your skin. Those are not going to change. And including the karma that you were avoiding 3 centuries ago, that's going to show up in this lifetime. More about that. Take us in there.
So what does change?
Nothing changes. Just the illusion continues to change. The matrix of past and future. Time and space has the illusion of changing, but fundamentally nothing happens at all.
So how does that relate to the body?
But this is an illusion. Body it's there, it's solid. That's why it's so difficult this can't be an illusion. I have nerve endings, I feel, but look closely. I often say, probably said it so much you're probably tired of hearing it, but go look in the mirror. Spend 10 minutes looking in the mirror. See if you can look at who you think you are physically for 10 minutes and just receive that. And notice how you can't really receive that. You'll always have a commentary, an outflow. You'll outflow right onto the mirror. or right into your own mind stream, telling yourself things or guessing things, or why don't I do this or this? You see if you can do that. It's like looking at the wall. Easier to look at the wall and have not much happen, but looking into a mirror, that's very interesting. But we would be different for each person. And it would be different each time you did it, if you even do it at all. Don't do anything unless you have to, but good more.
You know, and just that the body is a relative situation.
It is.
And when that body dissolves, or as you say, go back into the elements,
Yes.
the consciousness that seemed to be stuck to that
Yes.
situation, what function does it play after that?
No way to determine that. If one awakens, I make no claims, but I'm saying if one awakens, and while they're still a human form, then they actually they are already separate from that. It doesn't matter if the body drops or not. That doesn't mean that they get to be so distant from their body that they can not have pain or not have a headache. Those pains and headaches might be more intense because they're no longer making up stuff about it. So it will be like nothing happened. Well, something did happen because the body dropped. And a part of consciousness called the human form went back into its elements. Consciousness finding its own form. Dirt, water, fire, air. But it came out of that and became a human form. Danced around a little bit. Fought with the neighbors. Got the lawn mowed. I don't mean to make light of your lifetime. I'm just saying it's just a lifetime. You had many of them. Here we are again. Here we are again. Look at the situation. We're in a situation, all human beings, all sitting here together, and we are endeavoring to understand what this is. What is this situation of being a human? So some of us, because of the 2,500-year tradition, we receive vows. And what do the vows consist of? Just basically being upright, being honest. A very simple idea. Using the Buddha as the example of someone who is sane, someone who was not at war with anyone. And the Dharma, nothing comes from its own side as a separate being. Everything is without a self, without an other. Not something you believe, it's something you realize.
Thinking about, and one more just about the title of, and I didn't see it in writing yet, but I'm assuming that first word was moo. Does that mean?
No, moo is
M-O-O.
what are those called? Those not anagrams, algorithm? No, abacustation. No, it's when you have three words that stand for something like AAA, American Auto, something like. What is that? What are you?
Oh, that kind of moo.
Yeah, MOO.
Oh,
Wazuka thought it was funny, but that's the first part of her name. Muzuku.
but there's another kind of moo, M-U.
Uh-huh.
What is M-U?
That's okay. Jason, what's MU? Tell her. You already know what MU.
I can't remember. What is it?
Emptiness.
Emptiness. Yeah.
Oh. It's like-
Move. That's
No,
huh?
no, or negation.
Yeah, it's just it's Japanese. No. Move. But I was using it differently. So see, you took two meanings for us. That's duality. You weren't really confused. You're just pretending.
No, I said I didn't see it.
I think it's getting late in the day. I think we should, I'll take one question if there's a burning question that you'd like me to blow on. Yes, sir. One more.
Shoto bowing.
Just one though. No more than just the one.
As we're practicing to just observe, does it look less and less like we're observing?
Very good. Probably does. Probably because the ego mind, the self-centered part of the consciousness, is slowly finding its own place. It's just an illusion. You don't have to get rid of it. But the more you're emphasizing intention to just see. And what you do when you see it, when you observe, you just do what? Receive. Just receive. The more you're doing that, there's no credential, there's no statistician sitting back looking about how much you're doing that. But yes, eventually the identity part of the consciousness, the ego, we can't get any proof for anything, so it feels kind of useless. And why does it feel useless? Because it is useless. It's an imaginary self that its whole framework, its whole structure is based on greed and on fear, on paranoia, and on anger and hope, and on and on and on. So that's starting to come apart because you've been watching that be built up and comes apart. You may not have a witnessing quality that's happening, but just the intention to see is very powerful because you are aligning yourself with what consciousness is. And it's not, you could say that consciousness sees, but not exactly. Better than that. Well, thank you so much.
I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.